ഈ വെബിനാർ സീരീസിന്റെ അഗോറ 2021 ഭാഗമായിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു വെബിനാർ പ്രഭാഷണമാണ് ഇന്ന് നടക്കുന്നത്. കണക്ടിങ് സയൻസ് വിത്ത് സൊസൈറ്റി, വാട്ട് ഈസ് ഇമ്പോർട്ടൻറ്റ്. എത്ര പറഞ്ഞാലും അവസാനിക്കാൻ സാധ്യതയില്ലാത്തൊരു വിഷയമാണ് ശാസ്ത്രവും സമൂഹവും സംബന്ധിച്ചുള്ളത്. നമുക്കറിയാം, ശാസ്ത്ര സാങ്കേതിക മുന്നേറ്റം അതിന്റെ പരമാവധി എത്തി നിൽക്കുന്ന ഒരു കാലഘട്ടമാണ് നമ്മുടേത്. സയൻസ്, നമുക്ക് അറിവ് എന്നുള്ള വാക്കിൽ നിന്നുണ്ടായിട്ടുള്ള സയൻസ് ഇന്ന് പ്രപഞ്ച രഹസ്യങ്ങളെ എല്ലാം അനാവരണം ചെയ്യാനുള്ള ഒരു മാർഗമായിട്ട് മാറിയിരിക്കുകയാണ്. ഇപ്പൊ നമ്മളിപ്പോൾ ഇന്നെത്തി നിൽക്കുന്നത് എവിടെയാണ്? എല്ലാ കണ്ടുപിടുത്തങ്ങളും ആയിക്കഴിഞ്ഞു. അതിന്റെ ഇനി ലേശം മുക്കും മൂലയും മാത്രമേ ഉള്ളൂ എന്ന് അവകാശപ്പെടുമ്പോഴും ഇനിയും നമ്മെ മാടി വിളിക്കുന്ന എത്രയോ രഹസ്യങ്ങൾ ശാസ്ത്രത്തിൻ്റെതായിട്ടുണ്ട്. പക്ഷെ ഈ ശാസ്ത്ര രഹസ്യങ്ങൾ മനുഷ്യ ഉപകാരപ്രദമാകുന്നത് എങ്ങനെയാണ് എന്നുള്ളതാണ്. അപ്പൊ നന്മയുമായി ബന്ധപ്പെട്ട് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ മനുഷ്യന്റെ ഒരു നിയന്ത്രണത്തിലുള്ള ഒരവസ്ഥ ശാസ്ത്രത്തിനുണ്ടാകുമോ എന്നുള്ളതാണ് ഈ ഡിജിറ്റൽ കാലത്ത് പോലും. നമുക്കറിയാം, ഇന്ത്യയിൽ ശാസ്ത്ര സാങ്കേതിക വികസനത്തിനായി പൊതുഖജനാവിൽ നിന്ന് ചെലവാക്കുന്ന തുകയുടെ 70% വിനിയോഗിക്കുന്നത് അണുശക്തിയും അതുപോലുള്ള ബഹിരാകാശ ഗവേഷണത്തിനും മറ്റുമാണ്. അപ്പൊ അത്രത്തോളം നമ്മൾ ശാസ്ത്ര ഗവേഷണത്തെ ഒരു സൈഡിലൂടെ പ്രോത്സാഹിപ്പിക്കുകയും അതേസമയം സാധാരണ ജനങ്ങളുടെ അവസ്ഥയിലേക്ക് പലപ്പോഴും അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അവരുടെ കാർഷിക ജല ഉപയോഗങ്ങൾക്ക് ശാസ്ത്രം വേണ്ടത്ര അവരെ സഹായിക്കാതിരിക്കുകയും ചെയ്യുന്ന ഒരവസ്ഥ. അപ്പൊ പല ഡയമെൻഷനുകളിൽ നിന്ന് ശാസ്ത്രവും സമൂഹവും എന്നുള്ള ഈ വിഷയം ചർച്ച ചെയ്യാവുന്നതാണ്. നമുക്ക് ഏറ്റവും അനുയോജ്യനായിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു യുവ ശാസ്ത്ര പ്രതിഭയെ തന്നെയാണ് ഈ വിഷയം ചർച്ച ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടി കിട്ടിയിട്ടുള്ളത്. ഡോക്ടർ വിനോയ് സാറിനെ ഞാൻ ഏറെ ആദരവോടെ ഈ കൊല്ലം ശ്രീനാരായണ കോളേജിന് വേണ്ടി ഞാൻ സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്യുന്നു. നന്ദി, നമസ്കാരം.
Thank you, sir. Now I invite Dr. Disha S., General Convener, Agora 2021, to introduce our resource person.
Thank you, Shrija. A very good morning to all of you. With immense pleasure, I am introducing today's speaker, Dr. V.V. Binoy. Currently, Dr. Binoy is an assistant professor, School of Natural Sciences and Engineering, National Institute of Advanced Studies, NIAS, Indian Institute of Science Campus, Bangalore. Dr. Binoy was awarded with several scholarships and fellowships like Fellow at Intercontinental Academia, University-based Institutes for Advanced Study, Research Affiliate at Center for the Study of Neuroeconomics, George Mason University, USA, External Affiliate at Krasnow Institute of Advanced Study, George Mason University, USA, representative of UNESCO Unitwin Complex Systems Digital Campus, member Board of Studies, Ramaiah University of Applied Sciences, Bangalore, is a member IUCN Freshwater Specialist Group, South Asia, and IUCN Fish Conservation Network, South Asia. He was a mentor, South Summer Research Fellowship Program of JNCA SR Bangalore. Dr. Binoy is also a mentor of National Initiative on Undergraduate Science Students, Homi Bhabha Center for Science Education. Dr. Binoy is the Secretary of Ethological Society of India from 2017 to 21. He has a lead Biology Education Team Connected Learning Initiative, a joint venture of MIT USA and TIS Mumbai from 2016 to 2018. He was an young scientist, fast track, Department of Science and Technology, Government of India from 13 to 16, Cognitive Science Research Initiative Postdoctoral Fellow, Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, 2010 to 12. Dr. Binoy has carried out professional positions like SERB, Young Scientist, National Institute of Advanced Studies, Bangalore, Cognitive Science Research Initiative, Postdoctoral Fellow, National Institute of Advanced Studies, Bangalore. As a lecturer from 2009 to 2012 at MES KVM College, Valancheri, Kerala. Dr. V.V. Binoy was awarded doctorate and master's degree in zoology from University of Calicut, Kerala. His research specializations are in cognitive science and science communication. He did postdoctoral research at National Institute of Advanced Studies, Bangalore. Dr. Binoy's current research is focused on bridging cognition with conservation, sense making and protective action decision making, science education under the lens of cognition, science of science communication, and impact of COVID-19 on scientific research and science communication. And about research grants, Dr. Binoy was a principal investigator in 5 major projects. His funding agencies were the Connected Learning Initiative, TIS Mumbai, MIT, Cambridge, USA. He is also funded by Ruford Small Grant, UK, a National Council for Science and Technology Communications, Government of India, and funded by Government Department of Science and Technology, DST, Government of India. Dr. Binoy was a co-principal investigator in 4 major projects funded by Department of Atomic Energy, Government of India, then Science Engineering Research Board, Government of India, then National Council for Science and Technology Communication, India, education program. He is also funded by Education Program, National Institute of Advanced Studies, Bangalore. He was a consultant in 2 projects, mapping dengue mosquito population in Kerala and technological and social solutions to major water challenges facing India. He has conducted 20 academic courses for higher education sector, and Dr. Binoy has developed a module titled Ecosystem for the School Children of 4 states, Chhattisgarh, Telangana, Rajasthan, and Mizoram, in collaboration with TIS Mumbai and MIT, USA. His publication statistics, publications in Rutherford Journals 22, editor volumes 2, book chapters 4, technical reports 4, conference posters 20, conference presentations for his with his team 44, population articles in Malayalam 3. Dr. Binoy is guiding 1 postdoctoral fellow and 3 PhD scholars currently, has organized around 40 workshops, NIAS training programs for scientists and policymakers, and student scientist workshops. His term conducted student-scientist interactions in order to familiarize school and college with the tools and technique of science and social science in various localities of Kerala, Mizoram, and Karnataka. He has also conducted training programs for biology teachers. He is an excellent science communicator and conducted 9 talks for school children in Kerala, Mizoram, and Karnataka. He has made his presence in several television and radio shows on topics like nature conservation and science communication. Apart from all these, Dr. Binoy is a practitioner and trainer in yoga and martial arts. Actually, I have scissored 90% of his biodata. It was a massive and brilliant one. Pardon, Binoy, sir. A very warm welcome to you, Dr. V.V. Binoy, to the 24th Talk of Agora series conducted by SN College, Kollam. Over to Binoy, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, audible,
Yes,
sir.
Yeah, my slide is visible. Hope that my slide is visible.
Yeah,
Full screen.
perfect.
Okay, so let me start.
Yeah,
First of all,
sure.
thank the organizers of the Agora, Principal Dr. Sanil Kumar, and other organizers, and Jisha. Thank you very much for such an extensive introduction. So for the audience, don't care about all that things. That are the things which we do for our survival. Okay, so like you people, I am also an explorer of the science and a student of science. That's much. So, so today's topic, like our principal has mentioned, cannot be restricted into 1 hour's discussion. So as you know, these are two big themes of the knowledge systems. On one side, you have science, and the other side, you have society. So what I will do in today's discussion is, I will give you some glimpses of the activities of science and how it should be linked with the society, and what makes such a linkage feeble or inefficient in many cases, which leads to the science-society conflict. So in the second segment of the lecture, we will discuss the role of science communication, which works as a connector or a link between science and society, and what makes the science communication attempts a failure or not able to reach the efficacy which is expected from it. In the last section of the lecture, we will see how citizen science, a major tool nowadays being used to connect science with society, can be utilized for enhancing the interaction between science and society, and how such an initiative can be made at grassroots levels of the society and could be utilized for the benefit of the society. So during the lecture, don't hesitate to stop me. If you have any question, you can stop me and ask the question. And because I don't like to be in a FM radio mode where I will be talking and you will be hearing only. Let's make it a discussion, because when we talk about science and society
Pardon, sir. The questions will be posted in the Q&A box.
Oh, okay.
Only.
Okay. Oh, so you cannot raise the hand and stop the discussion. No problem.
Yeah, they can raise the hands, but can post questions only, and not they are not permitted.
Okay, no issues. Because generally when you talk, you follow the systems you were following in the offline talks. So, but let's let's follow whatever the organizers has suggested. And I hope that we will be having the discussion, and I will not be able to give the answers for all your questions, but let's explore the answer together. So with your permission, we are moving to the discussion. Okay. When we talk about science, or before we start discussing about science, let's do a small experiment. What you have to do that in the Q&A box, let us add, what do you think about science? Or for you, what is science? And why science is important? Because the science is important part can be omitted now. Let us, if you please add your perceptions about science. What do you mean by science? Or what you think about science? Or in your opinion, what is science? So you can add these questions whenever you are free, because I will come back to that answers, and we will continue the discussion from there. So while discussing with Jisha, I found that the audience is a mix of students as well as faculties, as well as some people interested in this science will also be there. So I will be getting a group of people who are different in their perspectives, and I will be able to learn a lot from you people. So let's move to the question, what is science? So if you check the Wikipedia, the classic source of information nowadays, you will see that science is defined as a systematic investigation of the nature. By doing the investigation, what people also will be doing that they will come out with answers, or the possible answers, and they will be come out with, based on this possible answers, they will design the tools or the mechanism to predict the natural phenomena. So here you can see there are very important things. They are developing the concepts and testable explanation of what they are observing in the nature. So here that itself says that the science is not the complete answer, or science cannot give you the complete answer, because it's a continuing exploration of the truth. So when you understand the truth, we will come out with a system to predict the phenomena, or the course a phenomena can take in the due course of time. So let us keep this information in the mind before we move to the next slides. So on the other side, whenever science comes out with a new information, it always becomes the part of the society, or it always affects the society. The reason is, when a new information coming to the society, it could affect the whole courses or the networks of the life happening. So you can see the invention of the wheels or invention of the vehicles has totally changed the way in which the human beings were moving from one place to another, as well as it made their life effortless. So the new information or a new theory can even convert it into a technology which can change the life of the human beings. at different level, starting from the individual level to the nations. So you can see such an invention or such a new technology or an invention or a new knowledge can even influence various facets of the life as well as the socio-economic equilibrium. For instance, when the gunpowder was discovered, it totally changed the relationship with the nation between the nations, because they found that this is an excellent tool to dominate the other societies. Similarly, when Darwin came out with the theory of evolution, it started questioning many beliefs which human society was carrying for centuries. So a new discovery or a new information generated by science can sometimes shake the existing social relationships. So this points gives the importance or shows the importance shows the importance of the science society relationship. So a change in science can change many things in the society. Similarly, the changes happening in the society can influence science also. So what happens that, like our principle suggested, many times society expects the solutions for their problems for science. So science is considered in many contexts as the problem solver. Yeah, that is true. One of the major source of the major target of the science, that is the applied science, or whenever somebody designs a scientific experiments, they will keep many problems of the society in the they will consider many problems of the many problems faced by the society, maybe starting from the drinking water to the vaccine, which is one of the major topic of discussion in science society debates nowadays. At the same time, science cannot grow alone. Science is also embedded in the society and it's linked with the social activities. And science needs, or science take the resources, both human resources as well as the material resources from the society for its growth. So it is important to have a good science society relationship for a nation to develop. If one is getting control over the other, or if there is no exchange of information between both, or a common target is set by the science and society, there is a very high chance that in many contexts that will end up in science society conflict. So you might have seen the context, a recent science society conflict in the form of protest against 5G. The 5G saying that this can create trouble to the humanity, and people earlier also people were thinking that the mobile phone can create trouble to their genetic materials, and there was protest and even ended up in science society conflicts. And nowadays another topic which is expecting or which is being discussed in the light of science society conflict is artificial intelligence. So science is coming out with the tools to bring more and more autonomous machines, and people are scared of that. Such kind of science society conflicts is expected in the coming future again. So another interesting example is the 30-meter telescope case. So some of you may know that this story. So the International National Astronomical Society decided to come out with a telescope, 30-meter diameter telescope, to study the sky and the universe. But they found the place they found to install this telescope was a mountain in Hawaii called Mauna Kea. But Mauna Kea was being considered as a holy place by the community of that area. So what happened that once the groundbreaking work for building this telescope was started, people came out with a protest and suggested that their beliefs are against building, and they suggested that they are not going to allow this scientific society to install the telescope there. So here you can see a set of beliefs kept by the society and a set of targets of the science gets collided, and in many cases both of them will not be benefited from this kind of protest. So this kind of incidents tells us the importance of coming out with the solutions for avoiding science society conflict. So how the science and society interacts. So like many of you know, science is done in the laboratory, and the information generated in the laboratory generally does not go to the public directly. So there is a medium, that is science communicators, could collect the information from the laboratories, then they take this to the general public. So what happened that generally it is believed that when you take the information from the laboratory to the public, it is expected to reach the public in an undistorted fashion. So science communicators can be considered as one of the major groups connecting science with society, and somebody who is contributing to the avoidance of science society conflict. So here what you can see that in the slide, along with the other things like increasing awareness, increasing interest in science, you can see that science communication is influencing opinion formation and identity formation. So here you can see that the way in which the scientific information is being disseminated amongst the public, who may know or may not know the science, or who may or may not have the basic training to understand the scientific information, what happens that many times this information gets distorted and ends up as a fuel for the science society conflict. So if you analyze the literature, you can see that the National Academies of Science, Engineering and Medicine of USA suggests that science communication should ensure that they should be considering the impact of the information they are taking from the laboratory and disseminating in the society, and they should consider the importance or the potential of such information to affect the science society relationship in an area. So it could affect opinions, policy preference, as well as the behavior of the people. If a new information comes, for instance, when somebody suggests that this drug can influence the behavior, the efficacy of, or the drug X can work as a system for regulating the spread of COVID-19, the next moment it can affect the behavior of the people, as well as the opinion of the people and the perspective kept by the policy makers, so that it can bring so many waves in the society. So on one side you have science, on other side you have society who may be expert or non-expert, or in between, science communication working as a major tool to connect science with society. So here, science, one of the role attributed to science communication is promoting scientific thinking in the society. So when an information comes to the society, science communication, which works as a tool for bridging science with society, is expected to cultivate a capacity called scientific thinking. So what is scientific thinking? On one side, it tells you to understand the scientific information coming to you with a rationality, and ask question about that and accept it only if it is acceptable to you or the evidences supports it. For instance, when you hear a scientific information, or when you read something that a plant X can reduce the impact of COVID on the victims of the patients of COVID, the first thing should come to your mind is the motto, that is prove it. So science gives the idea, or science gives the training to the people to ask the question, prove it, whenever they get an information. Similarly, the science communication which connects the science with society is expected to bring consensus between science and society when a new information comes to the society, which could change the behavior or the life of the people. For instance, if tomorrow 5G is coming, or tomorrow there is a, for instance, you may know that there was a neutrino observatory being installed within the Tamil Nadu, and people protested against it. So the reason was that people thought that they are going to study the neutrons, which is linked with the atomic energy devices. But actually they were planning to study the neutrinos, which is a harmless particle, which is going through all of our body every second. So whenever a scientific information is converted into an action, like a project or a plant or a technology, if you train your people to think with this kind of system, that is scientific thinking, it helps to avoid the coercion from the side of government and develop consensus between different parties involved in the interaction. So here another topic also is important, but what happens that the major tool for connecting science with society, that is science communication, in many times focus only on one thing, that is information deficiency model. What science communicators are doing is they will be pumping information to the society and they don't care about what this information is doing in the society. So generally there is a trend that whenever you do the science communication, the thing you have to keep in mind is just pump the information into the society. People write articles, people make videos, people put this information into the society without checking whether the information you are sending to the public has the potential to change their behavior or whether it is working as a negative thing. If you do the wrong communication, it will lead to the wrong connection between the society and can create a lot of trouble. Many times that will end up in a backfire, that is called attitude polarization. So people will be taking only a certain segment of the information only, and they will come out with a biased opinion about that, and which will lead to the polarization of the political and ideologies, and then people will be divided into the groups. Take the classic case of climate change. On one side, when the information was being pumped by the people, even many policymakers took only the selected facts and they stopped, or they were able to divide the people into two groups, supporters and resistors towards climate change, so that even a good climate change policy is not being implemented, even though such policies are made, not being implemented in the society, and which is pushing us more and more close to the disasters. So when you analyze, you can see that certain scientific information are accepted, but others are rejected. What makes the society to accept certain facts only, and why they are resisting the other factors? So this acceptance resistance of the scientific information by the society is being utilized by the people with vested interest. What they will do that generally the ignorance of the public will be utilized as a mechanism to get or exploit their money or their support. So this question, why certain scientific facts are rejected, or why society resists accepting certain facts, or why certain scientific informations are being accepted without any resistance, is an important topic to discuss when you are discussing about science society relationship. So like I said in the introduction, we will be moving to the second segment of our talk, where we will discuss about this question: why certain scientific facts are rejected, or it leads to the agitation in the society. So before discussing that, you should understand that the human mind, the society is made up of humans, and all the humans has one thing called mind in quote unquote. So the mind of human beings are not blank slate, so that when you put a new information, they will accept it as it is. So like we discussed in our previous slide, science always brings new information, and new information can collide with the popular belief. So even though there is an issue, people are keeping a set of beliefs. They are not the blank slate. They have an n number of beliefs in their mind, which will be affecting their decision making consciously or unconsciously. So many of our decisions we make unconsciously because we may not have the control over the decision. The decision comes as a natural thing. Whether to accept a scientific information or not, that also comes under such decision making. So we should understand what are the popular beliefs kept by the people of an area, and how this scientific information is going to collide with that, or going to merge with that, before you share such information with the society. And another important element we have to discuss here is the heterogeneity in the beliefs. So if you consider a society, everybody in the society is not going to keep the same belief. They are different in the beliefs, as well as the value attributed to certain things whenever as new information comes. For instance, tomorrow if I say that we are going to come out with a new technology like our Elon Musk's neural chip, which can directly copy your dreams. Some people will say that, yeah, I'm very happy that I can see my dreams or my dreams are getting preserved. But the other side, people may question the privacy. Or even the question will come, which dreams can be recorded by the Neuralink or which dreams should not be recorded by the Neuralinks. So you can see that in the society, people are diverse in their belief and the people are different in their value system and they expect different kind of economic or other kind of benefit from a new scientific information hitting the market or the society. So we should understand how the human mind processes the scientific information when we discuss about connecting science with society. So like we discussed earlier, generally when we talk about connecting science with society using the most beneficial tool or most effective tool, that is the science communication, we rarely discuss this part. We always think that, yeah, people don't know about this, let's give more information to them. So, but the issue is that whether the new information or a more information you are pumping into the society is going to be perceived positively or negatively, whether it is supporting the acceptance of the science or the polarization or the attitude polarization, which needs to be worked out before you start to connect science with society. So a brief, in 1 or 2 slides, I will give some idea about the human mind, which we can discuss if you want in the future. So mind has 3 major segments. So theoretically speaking, as a biologist, if you ask me what is human mind, it's nothing but what your brain does. But there is another issue when you are living in a group, it's not only what your brain does, but sometimes what others' brain does also in fact influences the way in which your brain processes the information. So the mind has mainly 3 components. One is motivation. All of us has certain motivation to do or gain something. And we have emotions. We get positive or negative feelings when we get an information, known information or unknown information. And the way in which we attribute meaning or understanding a new information. That's called cognition. So when the information, a scientific information like evolution, when you tell somebody that, yeah, human beings has evolved, it affects the 3 major components of the mind. It is not directly imbibed as an information being stored in a computer disk or being saved in a program which you are utilizing. So here, when you give an information, it affects the motivation of the individual as well as the group of individuals to whom you are communicating. It affects their emotion. It may bring positive or negative emotion. And the way in which they know this information or the way in which they try to understand this information is also going to affect whether to accept the scientific information or not. So how this information is represented in the brain or how the information is being kept in the brain, we will see that information is generally made as in the form of schema. The schema means the scheme kept in the brain by the individual. Whenever I tell you how to ride a bicycle, a set of activities are being generated in your brain. You will tell me that, yeah, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do this, then your cycle will start to move. So you have a set of information kept in a sequence like an algorithm in your brain. That's called schema. But schema has 2 major components. One is the information about the things, and second is the attitude you keep about that. Means that on one side, you know what is a bicycle, what is a riding means, what is a bell means and all that. On the second side, you have another element, that is the knowledge is represented in the form of liking or disliking. You like to do this while doing the bicycle. The bicycle riding gives you the pleasure or sometimes the pain, and the n number of things are connected to that. So when a new information coming to your brain, it will initiate the schema as well as the attitude also, which will affect the way in which you will be perceiving the information. So when I say that, yeah, human beings has evolved, there is a schema which will be activating in the brain, which linked with the information of evolution or your belief how you came to the earth, as well as your attitude, you like it or not. Sometimes you will say that, yeah, I like to think that I also have an evolution and I am connected to the other organisms on the earth. Otherwise, I may not like that. I will feel that I am I am a creation of a god. So this kind of things will create trouble when somebody tries to connect science with society through the communication. So, but when a new information comes, like I said, schema has two components. One is the knowledge and the attitude. What happens that this new information has to be either accommodated or assimilated into the existing schema to become the part of the knowledge. So what happens that during the accommodation, the existing schema adjusts a little bit and incorporates the new information. For instance, when I say that yeah, human beings has evolved, yeah, you have a concept about the evolution and you have a concept about your origin, and you may be thinking about X, Y, Z things. Now you got this information, you just readjust your schema, and there is not much issue. People accept this information without much issue. So, but sometimes what happens that when the new information is not going to match with the information kept by you or the belief kept by you, what happens that people goes to cognitive dissonance. Here, people feel discomfort but to hold two contradictory ideas in the mind. So in such condition, what happens that the existing knowledge creates the conflict in the mind, and they feel it will be less likelihood to fit into the schema which the person is keeping. So there the assimilation of the existing knowledge will be a little bit difficult, and many times it will end up in cognitive dissonance. So when a new scientific information comes, people may feel cognitive dissonance sometime, and they will fail to assimilate or accommodate that new information into the brain, and the dissonance continues and often ends up as a resistance towards the new information. So you can ask, as a human being, you can ask that, no, we human beings are, I'm getting so many comments. I will come to that up to the end, like you said. Yeah, so there are interesting. So as I told you in between, I will be checking the comments. I will give the answer in the end. So then you can say that, very simply, you can say that, see, we human beings are not like animals. We are rational organisms. We can think, we can understand. Our schema is not induced by the information alone. We are thinking creatures, correct? When we say about human beings, people say that we are Homo sapiens sapiens, the thinking man. But when you analyze the mind of a human being, you can see that even though we are calling ourselves as a rational organism, in many contexts, we don't follow the rationality. Because our rationality is bounded or limited by the capacity of our brain or the time available for processing an information. And if you want to have an unbounded rational system means a system which is capable of checking all the possibilities of a new information. You need a supercomputer or a computer with very, very, very high level of capacity, which even our brain, which is considered as a supercomputer, cannot do in many contexts. So then what happens when a new information comes? Another issue comes to our mind. What we do that we generally process the information automatically. So Darren Kahneman, a Nobel laureate in economics, came out with an idea that many of the information, including the scientific information, when it comes to the brain, which is automatically processed. And you don't have the control over that. So very simply speaking, if I ask your name, you don't have to think about what is your name. It automatically comes to your tongue. But at the same time, there is another thing called controlled cognition, where you need to think in depth. So instead of I am asking you, what is your name? If I ask, what is the sum of 23 plus 84? You need to give your attention to your thinking process to come out with the information. So here, even though we think that we are rational organisms, we will be using everything, or we will be taking the information coming to our brain rationally, a new scientific information or a new technology. Often what happens that we go for the automatic thinking process and we take a decision without anything. So Kahneman did a very interesting example, or he always gives a very interesting example during the lectures. So if you tell somebody that, yeah, I'm going to give you a juice, and take a glass and fill it with the juice from a bottle with a tag poison, a share of the participants, even though they know that you are not going to give them the poison to them, if you are pouring from the bottle with the label poison, many of them will say that I don't want juice, which says that your decision making process, when scientific information comes, you have to connect it with the scientific information processing, that many of your decisions comes as automatically. So that also affects the way in which the information being processed in the brain when it is a scientific information also. So scientific information, as we said in the beginning, we cannot separate. In many cases, it cannot be separated from the social changes it can bring, or the emotions or the motivations it can generate in the minds of individuals as well as the groups. And here, Simon came out with another thing. Simon is another Nobel laureate, came out with another thing by saying that we generally don't go for the rationality. Even when an information comes, we go for heuristic. We make simple rules and we go for that simple rules which satisfies us our expectations as well as the emotions. Similarly, when a new information coming to you, there are two other things which will affect the way in which the scientific information is being processed. One is called the anchoring, and another one is called the priming. So in the anchoring, what happens that the initial weight given to the information, if you are giving the information which is coming to you initially, will restructure the way in which you perceive that information. So the initial weight of the information creates a lot of biases in the way in which you measure the scientific information. For instance, if in the beginning itself I say that, yeah, we are going to change the community, or this drug is going to bring the hair even on the head of a bald person, and the way in which the initial information is given, which will totally restructure the way in which you are going to think about that information and take that information into your brain system, will be affected. Similarly, another thing is called priming. For instance, when we did this is not only us, many people has done this kind of perception studies to understand what is the image coming to the mind of the people when they hear the word atomic energy or Fukushima. So what we have found is that in many contexts, when somebody hears the word Fukushima or atomic energy, the images coming to their mind will be that of Chernobyl or Fukushima or the Hiroshima, Nagasaki kind of things. So even if you give the other information, the primed information will try to create trouble and will block the intellectual digestion of the new information coming to your mind, creating trouble for the acceptance of the new information being broadcasted by the people. So we will move to the, I'm not going to the in-depth discussion on this topic, but I will give you some more ideas about the way in which the information is being processed. Then we will move to the next segment of our lecture. So another thing is the availability. So for instance, when a new information comes, whatever information you can retrieve and process fluently can influence the way in which the scientific information is accepted. For instance, if nowadays, you can see even the advertisements, even the scientific informations are using the word immunity in a very high level. So even I was actually following some of these trends happening in the way in which the scientific information being shared by the pharma companies as well as the supplement producing companies. Even the toothpaste, now you can see that the word immunity is coming. So because this will be affecting the way in which the information is retrieved by the brain and processed it, because these keywords generates the patterns of thinking in the brain. And another issue, when people try to connect science with society, they use a lot of numerosity or the numbers. But generally, our human brain is not good at processing the number. Generally, that's why we always say you need to visualize the information. So when you communicate or when you take the information from the laboratories or from the scientific enterprises to the society, who may or may not have the capacity to process the scientific information, you need to take care of all these things. And now I am moving to another, this is the last in this, psychological factor in the discussion, which is creating a lot of trouble nowadays, which is called confirmation bias. So we human being has a tendency to favor the information confirming our expectation and beliefs. So some of the philosophers suggested that human beings are nothing but a accumulation or a collection of beliefs and expectations. So what happened that whenever we hear about an information, we generate a set of things in our brain. Whenever I say about evolution, whenever I say about atomic energy, whenever I say about genetically modified crops, whenever I say about another interesting topic, which is being discussed by the science society relationship discussers, that is vaccine. Nowadays, it's getting a lot of attention. What happens that you, like I said in the beginning, your brain is not going to accept it as a scientific fact. It also has a set of confirmation. It has a set of beliefs. It will try to confirm the belief being kept for a long years in the brain. So then what it will do that it try to remember the thing which matches our beliefs better, and it will try to draw such kind of information alone from the information coming to your brain and favor the information and convert that into the schema which is matching with your beliefs and attitudes. So then what happens that you will try to go to a situation called self-fulfilling prophecy. Means that you keep a prophecy that happens even when you discuss with a person. When you start to discuss with your student about a topic in science, the students will have a set of beliefs, and his or brain generally will be trying to generate a system to support their predictions as well as the beliefs. And if it is not matching, there is a very high chance that that discussion itself will end up in a conflict. So when you discuss with your colleagues about an important topic next time, you can keep it in this mind, the way in which his or brain generating a confirmation bias or a self and trying to fulfill the self-generated prophecy on that topic and resisting the way in which you are pumping the information into them. So this confirmation bias always lead to the issue of stereotypes. So like many scientists suggested, our brain is a interpreter, a lazy interpreter. What it tried to do that, it tried to keep the information generally in such a way that it's easy to process. So we generate stereotypes. So in the line with some other people who did a similar kind of experiment, we also did an experiment. We asked people what is the peculiarities of a scientist, or how you can identify a scientist. So when we started asking the children of age 12 in Karnataka, we found that they are also the victims of stereotypes. So they always believed that if somebody has to be called as a scientist, they need to have a spectacles, and most of them suggested that they will have a long beard. Very few of them suggested a lady as a scientist, and they suggested that the scientist will be boiling something in their laboratory. So that's a stereotype of a scientist. So then we say that my students, my colleagues are scientists. Generally, the class will end up in a big laughter, because they are not ready to believe that we are scientists because we don't match with the stereotypes. So this kind of stereotype formation also affects the way in which the society perceives the scientific information. So generally what they will do that if it is against the stereotype in many contexts, they will resist the new information. So it does not happen at the individual level. It happens at a group level also, because society generates the meaning for the information coming to them in a way that the other person also accepts it. So like confirmation bias, in a social situation, what happens that the social belief about certain things also affects the way in which you perceive the information. So the making sense of a new information is not a small process. It's an ongoing process. And here, an important thing you have to focus is, it is not based on the accuracy, but it is based on the plausibility, the way the people will be making sense of a new information. When I say that evolution happens, people always ask me the question, why monkeys are not evolving into human beings? Because Generally, the social mind, which makes sense of an information, goes for the plausibility, not for the accuracy of the information you are giving. So if they are dominated, the way in which they process the information is being dominated by this kind of plausible kind of explanations, it's very difficult for us to convince them using evidences. Because evidence goes for the accuracy, but sense making in many contexts goes for the plausibility. So that again can lead to the resistance. And so is the collective memory. So generally what happened, that collective, the sense making process lead to a collective memory of a group, or a memory kept by a group, and even a negative and even a false memory. Sometimes what happened, that it may not have happened, they may not have seen that, they may not have a memory, but they will process the information in such a way that it is a memory they were keeping for a long years. So in 2013, people came out with an explanation for false memory. That is it's called known as Mandela effect in psychology. Because many people believed that Mandela died in the prison in 1980, even though Mandela was continuing as a president of South Africa. Because the information they received, and the information their brain got, or the way in which they projected, not the process, projected the information, they got a false feeling that Mandela has already died. So this is another issue when you send a new scientific information to the society. What happens that many times this kind of information generates false memory, and such false memory can even create the resistance towards new information. And now we are slowly deviating a little towards another issue being faced by the people who are involved in science society relationship. That is the information overflow and the created by the media and social media. So generally what happens that our brain has, like I said in the initial phase, our brain don't have the unbounded capacity for rationality. So it has a limited capacity, and if you pump more information, positive or negative or valid or invalid, what happens that generally brain will get jammed, which is called as cognitive load, which again stop the processing of information. So in science classes or the mathematical classes, what happens that generally when the brain get more information on a specific topic, the best way is to, we call in quote unquote as shutting down the brain itself. And another issue with this overflow of information can lead to attention deficiency or information addiction. So information addiction has a negative thing. If a society or a group or an individual is information addicted, if you put more information there, generally they will be moving from one information to another information. So even I have seen my friends who is working in the research field moving from the newspaper, one newspaper's website to another newspaper's website, because they are addicted to the information. So information addiction, you can see people scrolling the Facebook and Twitter very quickly, or regularly visiting that kind of pages or even the emails to get more information, even though they know that no information is going to be available in that small duration of time. So, and clickbait, another thing. So the media also is trying to get maximum attention, no matter whether it is a good information, bad information. So what they want is the click in the information or in their website. So they use many things to attract the people. Such things also can influence the science society relationship. So you may know the fake news and all that. So fake news and misinformation are actually done by the people intentionally. But sometimes what happens that people react without their knowledge in filter bubble and echo chambers, because people with a like-mindedness develop a group, and that group will be echoing the same information for a long time, so that they will be resistant to a new information. So if you want to tell that by doing XYZ protocol, you are not going to be saved from the COVID, if they are the part of filter bubble, which an algorithm which will be allowing them to see only what they want, and the echo chambers where their own ideas will be echoed by other members of the group. So what will happen that will come out as a system resistant towards new information. So how much data you will give, how much information you will give, generally such kind of groups are not going to move away from that concept or the ideas or the beliefs they keep in their mind. So that also is affecting a lot the way in which the science society relationship are being formed or being evolved in the due course of time. So another thing is bots. So bots, as many of you know, bots are the systems which generates the conversation by its own. So Twitter has bot, and you can see. So there are so many bots which can manipulate the way in which the society interacts. So bots pumps information in such a way that after some time, like Goebbelsian thought, you know Goebbels, that Hitler's propaganda manager, who believed that if you say a lie 100 times, people will start to, again in quote and quote, people will start to think it as true. So bots utilize that strategy and they pump information into the conversation of the people about the science or non-science, and in such a way that the polarization happens. So the moment you put some information about the COVID or about the nuclear energy, about the 5G, or you want to convince the people that 5G is not the thing which has caused COVID, like many people in Europe believe, if the other things, the boat is there, that also will be competing with the information you are trying to pump into the society. So you are a human being, you have limitation to produce new information. Bot is a system which don't have that much difficulty, and it will be pumping the information, posting into the social media handles in such a way that it affects the mindset of the society. So then you can ask a very simple thing. Yeah, if somebody is like this, why can't we shame them? Because if somebody is not believing in the scientific information, shame can be used as a tool against that. Correct? You know, flat earthers. How much time I have? 11:32. So I will finish this within 5 to 10 minutes. Hope that is okay for the organizers.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So you will ask the question, why shame don't work? Because you can make people ashamed of their activities. For instance, if somebody says that earth is flat, you say that no, all of you make a group and try to shame that person by saying that no, you don't believe in earth as earth is a flat thing. But the interesting element is that the shame don't work in many contexts. So one Tanish Ugwankar is raising the hand. So if organizers can give a message to him that he can post his question to Q&A. What happened that many times people actually go for this kind of following this kind of alternate beliefs that they can get optimal distinctiveness. Because in a group, if everybody is eating something with right hand, if you eat with left hand, you get a lot of attention from the others. So this optimal distinctiveness works as a positive reward for the people to follow this, which can actually block the shame. So similarly, many of these people who cannot be changed from using the shame, who is keeping a misconception about the science, keeps a belief that they are the only people who knows the truth. The others don't have the idea what the truth is, and they are actually deluded. So you can see, if you check or if you analyze the conversation of the many so-called what we can say fake or self-proclaimed doctors of Kerala community. So they believe that these people don't know anything, which means that they are the only people know these things. So there also the shame don't work. And another thing, there is something called rejection identification model. Sometimes what happened that such a stigma, you say that he is a fool, that actually gives him an identity into the society. So the way you are, or the more you make that, the more you attempt to make that person a fool, the more that person will become viral in quote unquote in the society, and that will work as an identity. After some time, what will happen that the mainstream ridicule can lead to the formation of a new identity, and the people will take that person serious, following the previous thing which we discussed, that is the pumping of information. So that's also an important topic to be kept in mind when you talk about connecting science with society. So in order to connect with science to society, you need to consider another thing. Sometimes you need to break the sense, means that you have to make them understand that their beliefs are not possible. But it's not an easy task. Like I said in the earlier case, generally what happens that when you start to say this, people will go for the motivated reasoning. And you will have to work in the parallelly, you will have to give the other thing that is called sense giving. You have to give the information to the people so that there's the way in which they make a sense are getting renewed. which follow the real scientific information, which is very difficult to do. Because in most of the times, what happened that you will be competing with sense breakers and sense givers who will be supporting the alternate hypothesis also. So your target should be to come out with efficacious strategies, which brings changes in the way in which the information is being processed. And you will have to compete with the others to come out with a better strategy for that. So I'm cutting down my other segments. What I will do that I will stop here with this slide. Then I will take the questions. So then other things like how we can connect the society effectively and all that we can discuss if the audience wants to know more about that. So here, when you start a program to connect science with society, the first thing you have to keep in mind is the beliefs kept by the people, as well as their attitude and the way in which they process the information and react to it towards that. That is their behaviors. So here, first thing, when you start to do the communication to connect the science with society, understand what are the beliefs kept by your target audience. No matter whether it is your students, no matter whether it is the villagers, no matter whether it is the urban crowd, no matter whether it is a scientist from other departments, or no matter whether it is a policy maker. First of all, you want to understand what are the beliefs kept by that group of people as well as that individuals. And you should know what is their attitude, what negative and positive things, or what kind of positive, what kind of value they can attribute to your information. Because it's a new information, may or may not be acceptable to that community. So you should keep in your mind what is their attitude and what should be their normal way of behaving towards such information. So by knowing this, you can design the programs in such a way that you can enhance the success of the programs. You may not be able to completely change the behavior of the people in the society, but you will be able to at least begin the behavior change if you know these major parameters. Then you have to understand the way in which they make sense and the way in which the sense-making processes happen in that society. So then, based on that, you can come out with effective strategies to connect science with society, mainly through communication. Because it may be personal communication, it may be mass communication, without which you cannot do any change in the behavior, without which you cannot bring change in the behavior of that person. Because that's the only tool available, or the most important tool available, which can bring consensus amongst the stakeholders of it. So I'm stopping here and I can take the questions.
Sir, please check the Q&A box.
One second. Let me stop the screen sharing.
Okay, fine.
I'm going to the Q&A. Oh, we have already 14 questions.
Yeah.
Second. Yeah. I hope I didn't. Yeah. So the first question, what is the format? Should I read the question and continue with that, or yeah, I can read the question and that. Yeah. Okay. So the first two answers were for our first two comments are the answers for the query I gave to them. What is science? So science is the solace for human curiosity and the path of advances in human life. Yeah, I accept with that. I agree with that. Science is the systematic knowledge of unveiling truth by the experimentation and observation. Okay, very good. So I accept that answers, and I'm happy that you people are also keeping a interest for understanding the definition of science. So then other thing is, the next question is from Dr. Jisha Krishnan. How we can do the information deficiency model much more acceptable towards public. So that was the crux of my talk, because generally what people do that they believe that people are lacking any kind of information. And the current science communication model, or the model being used for connecting science with society, follow the information deficiency model. So we attribute, it's called as an armchair speculation in many times. We believe that, yeah, we are a learned community, we are a communicator, and they don't know anything. So sometimes what happened that they also know many things, because like if you just ask to any kind of people, you will understand that they all keep certain kind of beliefs and certain kind of attitudes, because human brain is an interpreter. So whenever you give an information, so whenever you give an information, in the form of a writing or in the form of a lecture or during the conversation, what happened that brain will try to interpret that. So even if you go to a tribal person, an old aged tribal person, and go and ask to him, what do you mean by certain things? They may have they will have their own mental image. We use another term in cognitive science called mental image of that. So when they have the mental image, what they will do, that the issue is that when you give the information, that they will go for protecting their beliefs, because they are maintaining their belief, and they may have a lot of evidences from their side also. So the best thing you can do is, like I said in my last slides, you should understand what are the cognitive blockades, means the psychological factors affecting the way in which the person is processing the information. So when information comes to your mind, what happened that it does not perceived as such. So we always say that in psychology, we say that, or cognitive science, we say that when an information comes, you color it based on your experience and your information. So in the classes, I say that you put a lens. When you start to talk to a person who is a psychologist or who is a biologist, you keep a perception, yeah, this person is going to talk about these things. So then what happened that your processing will be utilizing that filter. So first of all, you should open your filters, try to understand what that person is thinking, or in way in which that person is going to process that information. Then you will be able to find where to tackle. Okay, you will understand that, yeah, this is the reason that these people are not believing it. And then you will be able to come out with the evidences for that reason. So don't expect that in the first exposure itself, these people are going to change. So they will wait, they may need more evidences, because brain will come with more and more explanations for that. Then what happened that up to a certain level, they will start to show that, yeah, this is working. This is the reason. I will give you a very simple example. I have around 17 questions. So I will, but sometimes this will be helpful for others also. So when I was doing my PhD, I did an experiment. I was a biologist, slowly became a cognitive scientist. So what I did that, most of the biologists or who has an interest in conservation thinks that they want to save some animals. So I decided as a second year PhD student I decided to save the snakes in my area, because snakes brings a lot of attention. And I choose rat snake. I'm from a village region. Mainly the rat snakes comes to my house, even inside the house, to collect the rats. So then I thought, yeah, I can convince the people by saying that, yeah, this is a harmless animal. This does not create any trouble and all that. So, but people never accepted my discussions, the information I pumped to them. I even came out with the data, rat snake don't have poison. And I came out with the talks of the scientists and all that, but nothing worked. Then slowly and slowly, we try to understand that you need to understand the mindset of the people. So one of the things we did in the nearby villages, we did a small interview, not a scientific one. We asked the people what makes them what brings the resistance towards this rat snakes. So we found that they know very well that the rat snake is a harmless animal. They know that that is not poisonous. They know that that animal is actually very beneficial for them. But the issue is that they believed that the rat snake mates with cobra, so which is unacceptable. And they believed that the rat snake can bring his or her boyfriend or girlfriend to their home. So they don't have any issue with the rat snake, but they have the issue with this, that rat snake can bring cobra, which is not true. But the issue is that which is very difficult to convince. So whenever you say that there is something called species cannot interbreed, or this animal mates with its own species only, there is a hard belief already kept in the mind of the people, which is propagated through the stories as well as the belief systems, that cobra is the mate of rat snake in that area. So such kind of things you have to understand where to tackle, instead of putting lot information. Otherwise, what will happen that will be like putting more and more water to a pot which is already closed. I hope that I answered your question. And next is Anu. Research is utilizing a lot of money. How much, in your opinion, it directly helps our society to improve the quality of life? How increase in the number of scientific papers related scientifically helps the society? Yeah, so that is a very important topic. Let me take a little bit water. See, like somebody said in the beginning, in the question and answer session, is that science want to try to find truth. So on one line, you have to continue the exploration of the natural phenomena, which may not be giving any direct fruit, or which is not going to give you the fruit in the coming future. But that will accumulate, or that will add to the understanding, and that may give new ideas in later phase. You need to keep that. At the same time, the applied part, because as I said in the beginning, science gets the resource from the society, that also has to be done. So generally, the policy should be in such a way that it should promote the basic science as well as the applied science should go hand in hand. It should not be two different kind of systems. They should cross talk, they should interact with the society, and they should tell that this also have they should convince the society the importance of that basic research also. So that kind of system is very important, where basic science, applied science, and societal needs works hand in hand. But generally, the chasm between science and society is large, and there are activities nowadays coming. A lot of people are involved in trying to connect science with society. So in future, we can expect more papers which is connecting science with society. Aniket Kashyap. As far as my views are concerned, science is the organized pathway in which one can achieve development faster as compared to what normal the span does. Yeah, so that is again, you cannot, science alone cannot do that. Science needs the support from the society. Because if science is too alienated from the society, generally society will say that we don't know what you people are doing. So if you just analyze many of these US Congress discussions, you can see that even the leaders of the many Republican Party, I'm using the examples from America, so that you can get it in the internet. Many of things are transparent, openly available there. So they will be saying that, yeah, we don't believe in climate change. Or they will say that, yeah, we don't think that this is going to work. So even you have seen the vaccine resistance. So it should be a collaboration between science and society. The science should interact with society. Otherwise, what happened that this faster development, which requires resource from the society, will be stopped. If you are not able to convince the policy makers, they will say that we are not going to give enough money because we don't believe that this is going to give us any benefit. So it's a narrow line. You need to find a connection between these two things so that society is happy to give money to the science and science is happy to do works for the society. Sir, do you think that our current education system, it's from Abhijit S, to increase the scientific thinking in the society? So one thing you need, our current education system is mark-based or score-based system. So even there was a recent article in Nature discussing about the importance of developing the people who are thinkers, original thinkers. So all of you have undergone the education. So you ask this question to yourself. I don't have to give the answer, because how much original thinking has been promoted by the education system? Because science requires rational thinking. Science requires finding answer to the questions, and science requires evidences. So I work in the area of science education also. So many times when we were students, we were thinking that somehow we will memorize what is given here and we will get the mark. That's all. Whether what we are learning in the laboratory, in the classroom, how we can connect it with our life, or whether it has any use, that need to be given emphasis by the education system. I can give you another example from my own experience. So I was working on a project on the environmental education in Mizoram. So one girl, I called her as a philosopher, asked me a question that I'm studying mathematics, I'm studying physics, I'm studying social science. But I am not interested in any of these things. I am interested only in biology. Why should I study other things? And the second question she asked me was that in biochemistry, I am studying photosynthesis. What is the relevance for my life? So the education should cultivate that capacity for utilizing the scientific information in the personal life, without which that scientific thinking capacity and scientific temper is not going to come out. And those who are students who is attending this lecture should understand that you also should start applying or finding the uses for the knowledge you are acquiring. So generally what we do, and trying to come out with a comprehensive database. So generally nowadays, we never think about how I can use the simple physics I studied in my laboratory, in my high school, to solve a simple problem at my home. So slowly that capacity, utilizing the scientific information, we should promote. So in the education system also, we should start think about activity and thought-based, bringing more importance to utilizing scientific thinking, not science, scientific thinking in the education system. So another question is from Bhavani Shankar. The mobile tower kept in the city as are also a big question in the mind of people because it radiation pollution. So there are a lot of information available on internet on that. So I am not actually a radiation physicist who can give the answer on that. But general studies has shown that radiation from the mobile towers are not as harmful as people were discussing about. We all go through radiation because, you know, if you just check the daily radiation level coming from the sun, all of us are exposed to the radiation, and in many cases the ionizing radiation creates the trouble. So if you give Dr. Parthasarathy, who was the former Secretary of Atomic Energy, who has written a lot about the atomic radiation, how what is the feeble amount of radiation coming from the mobile towers, and he comes out with a lot of literature that it cannot bring any change in the cell and all that. So you can check that. Just give Professor Parthasarathy and a radiation from mobile tower. So next question is from Jinu. We boast that science and technology are far advanced. Still, we have no permanent cure for lifestyle diseases and precarious COVID. Paradoxically, what is your view? Okay, so Jinu's question brings another thing. See, science cannot give answer to a question without doing valid research. So many of these life scale and science don't believe in just predicting something without the evidences. And science is a process which undergoes purification of the knowledge. So we boast about science and technology. So, but we don't know, you know, the modern science don't have a long history. It hardly has 400-500 years of history. So in that time, it came out with such a huge knowledge base. So there is another thing. So they are trying to understand the reason behind these kind of things. Until and unless you understand something, you cannot and to convert that into a medicine, that also requires a long-term process. So science is a process, it's a continuous process. So you cannot say that tomorrow you have an issue, science will come out with the answer. So I was asking the question in the beginning. So when I was taking classes for school children, they asked me another thing. So yesterday I was getting a lot of mosquito bite. Your science was not able to come out with an efficient mosquito repellent. So other person said, on the other side, we have reached Mars. So we don't know many things now also. So we are in the process of trying to understand those things. So once you understand that, you will be able to come out with the impact. Haniket Kashyap, what are your views about Jammu Kashmir, where basic internet, which is most preliminary tool for connecting science with society, is scrapped? And how, as a scientist, one can connect the science with such society? So this is a political question. So that does not come under the scientific that. So this information is available, and you should ask your policymaker this question. And scientists are not policymakers. First of all, you understand that scientists come out with the facts. So they say that this is a situation, and society and policymakers comes out with the way in which that information has to be utilized. So this cognitive thinking and analysis rates are different in different individuals, right? It's a question from Abarna. So while discussing any science-oriented approach, what can be done if the above mentioned differences hinders the discussion? That's a very important question. So generally, until recently, science never considered individual variation much. So That's what I said. You know, when you are talking about something or when you are discussing about something, you should understand what are the beliefs kept by that person about that topic. That's very much important. So based on that, you can build the discussion. Otherwise, many times before the discussion starts, it will be ending up. If you are talking to a flat earth person about the universe, it's very difficult. So if you see the history of the science, you can see that, like Galileo, like Darwin, many people has faced this issue. It's not only one individual, the whole society was against them. So you should understand that, and then you should come out with more and more and more and more evidence. If the person is educated and can process the evidences, there is a very high chance that he or she may change the mindset. But like I said in my discussion, changing mindset takes so many other things that also you need to take into consideration. So try to understand the way in which that person think. That helps you a lot. Why high Anu? Why high quality research papers are not accessible to everyone? Again, that is a question being discussed by many people, and there are many initiatives in that line. Even the government of India is thinking about a system where everybody can access the paper. So, you know, like I said in the beginning, science society relationship is too complex. And many times science works as a commodity. So this is actually a very interesting question. Many people has already discussed about this. So you can tell that, you know, when you talk about a commodity, there will be value associated with it. So when there is a value associated with it, people will thinking about the trade of that. So that happens with scientific papers also. Many times what happened that the scientific community produces the paper. So like our friends in the field of commerce making fun of me, or my colleagues in the sense, all the scientists, by saying that you write the project, you defend the project, you do the experiment. You mean the scientific community, okay, not me alone. And coming out with the papers, and then somebody, and you people do the peer review, and somebody like Springer and Nature will be selling it. So people are thinking about open source publication and all that. So that will be so there are lot of open source movements where you can see the information being given free. People can access the papers, and there are many archives available now where even scientists upload the preprint of their paper before it is being submitted to the journals. It's called, if you are from biology, you can check bioRxiv or medRxiv, where you get a lot of pre-previews of papers which you can use, and even you can cite that also. So this green open source movements are getting a lot of momentum. Hope that in future everybody can access the paper. Clickbait reinforcement. Jinu has asked many questions, so I will come to your questions up to the end, because there are many people who hasn't asked. Yeah, how can we train students for more scientific thinking? That also I will discuss in the end, because I have answered one of your question. Then Priyanka Jha. Nowadays, online classes, how we can do the experiment. It's difficult to understand the facts. Science is based on experiment. That's a very interesting question. So there are two initiatives going in that line, because you know many experiments you cannot do without the laboratory. So one of the movement happening in this line, even we did something in that line, is coming out with low cost experiments. Because you know, to setting up a laboratory itself is a very costly business. So what we did that during our intervention study work in Chhattisgarh, Telangana, Rajasthan, and Mizoram, we converted the volumetry into a very simple process. Because in the colleges and schools, you can see that volumetry requires a pipette, burette, flasks, then pipette stand, burette stand, and all that. So then it's a quite costly business, because you know, in order to set up something for 10 students, you need that much money. So we converted everything with syringes, because you know, you get syringes where you can measure accurately, or that much accuracy is required to teach the concepts of experiment at school level. So then we came out with the titration and all that, and they are doing the titration with with a cost of around 50 to 55 rupees for one child. And we came out with a technique even to convert the whole classroom into a laboratory, where everybody can use pipettes, burettes, because that is replaced with 5 rupee, 2 rupees syringes. And you need to tackle the formula in such a way that students can come out with the results. Similarly, there are nowadays simulations are getting a lot of popularity. So slowly, many free simulation sites are also available. So in the current context, you cannot do many experiments, but you can do many other experiments. And you can even use the simulation to tell that, yeah, this way you can do the experiments also. So now we have to think about, if we don't know how long this pandemic is going to continue, we have to think about the simulations. We have to think about the low cost experiments which can be done at the home itself, that kind of things. So what is the status of? Yeah, so Aparna's question, we are not open to such kind of discussion which involves exchange of thoughts. They rather find convenient to stick to their approach. The whole exercise tend to be futile if such things continue. Any suggestions and solutions for that? So Aparna asked about the things which I discussed in the last phase of my discussion. Because you should understand, first of all, when you are going for a intervention, you should understand that there will be resistance. So until and in the beginning itself, don't think that people are going to accept what you are telling them, because you yourself won't do that if something which is against the belief you are keeping being said by the other people. So like I said in the beginning, there will be resistance because people don't want to accept new things. They are happy with whatever comes. And if the things are disruptive, you may be hearing a lot about disruptive technology and all that. If it disrupts the way in which the people think, it is very difficult for the people to accept. So first of all, you should accept that there will be resistance. Okay. So based on that only, you should think about how you can bring the behavior change. And while talking about behavior change, there is again another kind of debate happening. People say that you cannot do the behavior change kind of communication because it's the right of that person to believe it or not. Only thing you can do is that you can tell the fact. You say that, yeah, the science says this. So when the fact comes, the more and more the fact comes. So people ask me how you can make people science friendly. So I always tell that nobody told me to buy a mobile phone. Correct. Or nobody told me to buy a laptop. After some time, I thought that I want a laptop or I want a mobile phone. What made me to think like that? I found that it is beneficial for my neighbor, or my neighbor who is using laptop. Neighbor could be my colleague or whoever it may be. Using laptop is getting a lot of benefit. So you have to show that if you follow scientific thing, there is benefit. Then you don't have to tell the other person. Other person also will be moving to the scientific thinking simply. But it's not an easy task. First of all, you should accept that in your mind. So during my PhD, like I told you, I thought that, yeah, I can change the science, the way in which the people learn science. And this is how many years I started my science communication and education programs, started in 2007. But I don't think that I was able to bring 1 or 2% of change as well. So keep that in mind. And don't forget that you are also the victim of confirmation bias and attitudes and beliefs. So the same thing you can see in the other person also. Dr. Nagendra Prabhu, what is the status of India, Kerala with regard to science awareness? Up to my knowledge, there is no detailed analysis of that. Our literacy we studied. So Dr. Nagendra Prabhu has asked that what is the status of India, Kerala with regard to the science awareness? So science awareness, up to my knowledge, there is no detailed study available, because certain regions, we did some studies when we were doing in the initial phase of when I started my project in this line. But we need a detailed study. Then when you say science awareness, that's a complex thing. What science you are talking about, whether it is awareness towards biology, whether it is awareness towards medical science, whether it is awareness towards environmental science, whether it is awareness towards space science. It's a complex question. So first of all, you have to think about something which is doable. Then we may need to do such a long-term process. So my last section was on that, which I didn't talk because of the constraint of time. Hope that next time we will be able to discuss that, where we discuss about how public can be utilized to collect data from the grassroots level of the society. So we need to think more about public involved science programs. More public in the program means they will be getting familiarity with the science, the methodologies of science. And tomorrow they also will evolve the scientific temper because they know what to do or how the scientists are generating new information. So Babida Wiki, how can tackle the mind? So Jisha, how long I can speak? It's already 12:05. I'm seeing a long list of questions here.
Sir, you can filter the questions. You can select the questions.
So what I will do that I can quickly go through the questions and I will give the
Yeah,
answers.
it's a summary.
Somehow, otherwise, we are running short of time. I know. So Tanish Ugavekar is raising the hand. If he has any question, he can put it in the comment box.
Sir, you can post your email ID, then
Yeah,
other
my
questions they can
1 second. I will come to that
directly
part. I will 5
post
minutes.
you.
I will wind up these questions. Then I will give some suggestions how they can contact me. How we can enhance scientific temper in new generation. Anonymous attendee. Society is interested in technical field than science, facts, and studies. What may be the reason? See, bringing scientific temper is not a magic kind of thing. It requires changing the mindset from the base of the society. So starting from the children, and not only on children. When I say something about this thing, people will say that, yeah, let's go and do a science communication program for schools and colleges. But if that was the truth, we have done a lot of programs like that. So you need to understand what are the factors blocking this kind of things. Then you have to come out with a solution, and it may vary from individual to, or at least from society to society. So for instance, the way in which a scientific information uh, will be processed by the urban children or urbanites may be different from the rural people, because their interests and their needs are totally different. So you need to consider this diversity. You need to consider the mindset. Then you have to come out with a program in such a way that it affects and helps the people to solve their issues. So the moment people feel that this is positive, it will be coming out with they will be interested in scientific way of thinking. But it resists. The issue is that, like I said, human beings are not a rational kind of animal. Don't think that even though we call ourselves as Homo sapiens sapiens, which means thinking man, we are not such kind of people. We are also the victims of emotions and our urges or the motivations. What is the philosophy of science determined by? That's a very complex question which requires a long discussion. I can say that the basic philosophy of science is falsification, like Popper said. If I say that, tomorrow XY plant, if you eat XY plant, you will be out of COVID, you have to always say that, falsify that. So that is the best way, or prove it, very simply speaking, prove it. So that's the best philosophy a scientist follows. When somebody says something, we always ask one question. I always tell my students, that is the mantra, prove it. If you cannot prove it, I don't believe it. If you prove it, the moment I will start to believe it. Can contribute their traditional knowledge. So Anu has asked the question, how can develop interest in research and curiosity? Research and curiosity, 1 second, do we have any system where common people can contribute their traditional knowledge? There are many systems like that. Like even not traditional knowledge, there is a journal published by CSIR, which try to gather the traditional knowledge. And there are systems like National Innovation Foundation and all that, where you can and even you can start a portal nowadays. You don't have to worry about someone else. You can have your own portal where you can collect the traditional knowledge and put it there. Develop interest and research and curiosity. That's the only I thought I gave the answer for that question. What is your scientific view about religion? So religion for science is a very complex question, which I cannot give the answer in one word. For a psychologist, religion is another belief kept by the people, which can affect a lot, like in many other beliefs, the way the information is processed. So Andrew Manuel, what are the decisive factors of dimension to be kept in mind for ensuring holistic approach in connecting science with society? The most important decisive factor is that you should understand that people are not blank slate. So that is one of the major issue with information deficiency model. People, that I hope I will be connected with Disha's question also. People always believe that we need to give more information. People never discuss about information backfire also. And very few people in India works on this line of work on science communication, where you connect the mindset of the people with the scientific information, how they process these things and all that. So most important thing you have to keep in mind is people are not blank slates. People also keeps beliefs, and that beliefs can be contradictory to the existing scientific knowledge. And another issue is that people ask you, science, today you said something, tomorrow you say that this is not working. People always ask me that. You said that people say that today say that coffee is good. Tomorrow another result will say that coffee is not good. Or that. So we have to say that science gives you the access to the available truth. It's not giving the idea of ultimate truth. It gives you the idea about the truth available. So, and it is a continuous process. Tomorrow that may change. We, the scientific community, even throw Einstein's idea or Newton's idea or Galileo's idea. At that time, Galileo was the final word. Later, people said that no, Newton's ideas are more close to the truth. Then Newton was out. They said Einstein's ideas are more close to the truth. We are moving forward. Tomorrow they will say the whole scientific system is not true, based on evidence, not like somebody says like that. So you have to say that it's not ultimate truth, it's the available truth. It may change, but the current evidences are like that. Second, the third thing you have to say that the philosophy of science is falsification. When somebody try to speak about science, a scientific fact to the other person, like somebody asked why the other person is not accepting what I am saying, you should keep in your mind that you are also answerable, or your argument should be falsified. So if the other person is not trying to falsify your answer, you should think about the scientific the capacity of the other person, because science is living on is built on falsification. So there is no ultimate truth. Like I said, today I'm saying that yeah, this is true, and the person to whom I'm talking may say that this is not true. You prove it by saying that yeah, this is evidence is available. Other person also brings the evidences, and whoever evidences who has a more strong evidence, science accepts them for the time being. Then the other person also will be going for the truth, more search, more truth. So falsification is, you have to keep in mind that you are not defending for the ultimate truth. If you are a follower of a science, you are trying to defend the available truth. Clear? So my plan was to stop at 11:30. It's already 12:15. So other questions, unfortunately, I cannot give answer. I hope whatever we have discussed gives you the insights to that. So you can write to